Joseph was 17 years old when his life fell apart. At that age, most young men are still protected by routine, family, and familiarity. Joseph still had a father who loved him deeply, brothers who shared his blood, and dreams that seemed bright and unstoppable. He had no idea that within a single day, he would lose his home, his status, and nearly his life. He had no idea that betrayal would become the doorway to purpose. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob, but he was not simply another name in a long family list. He was the first son of Rachel, the woman Jacob had loved for years before he could marry her. Rachel represented longing fulfilled, delayed hope finally answered. When Joseph was born, he was not just a child. He was treasured. In Jacob's eyes, he was special, and Jacob did not hide it. He gave Joseph a richly ornamented robe, a coat that marked him as different. In the ancient world, clothing symbolized more than fashion. It represented authority, inheritance, and position. While his brothers worked in the fields under harsh sun, Joseph wore visible favor. That visible difference planted invisible resentment. Joseph was also a dreamer. One night, he dreamed that he and his brothers were binding sheaves in the field, and that their sheaves bowed down to his. Another night, he dreamed that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down before him. These were not random dreams. They carried meaning. They suggested leadership and reversal. They hinted that the youngest might one day stand above the older. Joseph shared the dreams. Perhaps he was immature. Perhaps he simply trusted his brothers more than he should have. But his honesty became fuel for their anger. "Will you really rule over us?" they asked. Jealousy hardened into hatred. Scripture tells us they could not speak peacefully to him anymore. The household grew tense. The distance widened. Resentment waits for opportunity. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were grazing their flocks far from home. Joseph obeyed without hesitation. He walked alone across open land, searching for them. When the brothers saw him approaching in the distance, the sight of that robe stirred everything again. "Here comes that dreamer," they said. The words were filled with contempt. They plotted to kill him. In that moment, hatred became action. Reuben intervened and suggested they throw Joseph into a dry cistern instead. They stripped him of his robe, the symbol of favor, and threw him into the pit. Imagine the silence inside that hole. A 17-year-old boy looking up at the faces of his own brother. Dust in the air, confusion turning into fear, betrayal becoming real. Above him, they sat down to eat. Below, Joseph's world collapsed. Above, lunch continued as if nothing had happened. When a caravan of Ishmaelite traders passed by on their way to Egypt, greed replaced rage. Killing him would satisfy anger. Selling him would profit them. For 20 pieces of silver, Joseph was sold like property. Back home, Jacob was shown the blood-stained robe. He believed his beloved son had been torn apart by a wild animal. Grief settled deeply into his heart. The family was fractured beyond repair. Yet in the middle of betrayal and pain, Scripture repeats a quiet truth that becomes the foundation of Joseph's life. The Lord was with Joseph. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. He was a slave in a foreign land, with no power over his future. Everything familiar was gone. But Joseph did not allow injustice to shape his character. He worked faithfully. He served diligently. He refused to let bitterness define him. Integrity is revealed when life feels unfair. Everything Joseph touched prospered. Potiphar noticed. Soon Joseph was entrusted with the entire household. Responsibility increased, even though freedom did not. Favor followed him. Not because circumstances were kind, but because God's presence remained. Then came temptation. Potiphar's wife repeatedly tried to seduce him. The pressure was constant. The opportunity was private. Joseph had every human excuse. He had been betrayed. He had been sold. He had lost everything. Who would blame him for taking something for himself? But Joseph's answer revealed his foundation. How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? His loyalty was not to circumstance. It was to God. He ran. And doing the right thing cost him again. He was falsely accused and thrown into prison. Obedience led to deeper suffering. Faithfulness led to confinement. But Scripture repeats the same line. The Lord was with Joseph. Even in prison, Joseph found favor. The warden entrusted him with responsibility over other prisoners. Leadership continued to follow him because character had been formed in hidden places. Years passed. 2 of Pharaoh's officials were imprisoned and troubled by dreams. Joseph told them that interpretations belonged to God. He accurately explained their dreams. One would be restored. One would be executed. Joseph asked the restored cupbearer to remember him. He was forgotten. 2 full years passed. Sometimes the hardest part of faith is not pain, but delay. Joseph had dreams at 17. He was 30 before they began to unfold. 13 years of uncertainty. 13 years of hidden preparation. Then Pharaoh dreamed. 7 healthy cows swallowed by 7 gaunt cows. 7 full heads of grain consumed by thin ones. None of Egypt's wise men could interpret them. Finally, the cupbearer remembered Joseph. Joseph was rushed from prison, cleaned, and brought before Pharaoh. Standing in a palace after years in confinement, Joseph said something remarkable. I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer. He interpreted the dream as 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of devastating famine. But he did more than interpret. He proposed a plan. Store grain during abundance to survive scarcity. Leadership is not only about insight, but about preparation. Pharaoh recognized wisdom in him. In a single day, Joseph was elevated from prisoner to governor over Egypt. 17 when betrayed, 30 when elevated. But Joseph's greatest test was not suffering, it was power. When famine struck Canaan, his brothers came to Egypt seeking grain. They bowed before him without recognizing who he was. The dream had come true. Joseph stood in authority over those who once threw him into a pit. He had complete power. He could imprison them. He could destroy them. He could make them feel what he had felt. Instead, he tested their hearts. He watched their choices. He saw change, especially when Judah offered himself in place of Benjamin. Then Joseph could no longer contain his emotion. I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? Fear filled the room. His brothers trembled, but Joseph spoke words that define his life. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. He did not deny their wrongdoing. He simply refused to let their evil be the final explanation for his story. If Joseph's journey speaks to where you are right now, take a moment to subscribe, like this video, and share in the comments which season feels closest to your life. Your story may encourage someone else who is still in their pit or prison. Joseph brought his family to Egypt. He provided for them. He chose mercy over revenge. When his father later died and his brothers feared retaliation, Joseph asked a profound question. Am I in the place of God? He refused to assume God's role as judge. He understood that sovereignty belonged to God alone. Joseph lived to be 110 years old. Before he died, he made his family promise that when God delivered Israel from Egypt, they would carry his bones back to the promised land. Even at the height of power in Egypt, his heart remained anchored to God's promises. Joseph's story teaches that the pit was not abandonment. The prison was not failure. The waiting was not wasted. Every season shaped him. The pit stripped him of pride. Slavery trained him in discipline. Prison strengthened his endurance. Power revealed his mercy. Human intention sought harm. God wove salvation. Maybe today you feel buried in a pit of rejection. Maybe you are in a prison season of delay. Maybe your dreams feel forgotten. Joseph's life reminds us that God's presence is not limited to palaces. He is present in pits. He is present in prisons. He is present in waiting rooms of silence. What was meant to break you may be shaping you. What was meant to bury you may become the ground where your purpose grows. Joseph's story is not about revenge. It is about redemption. And one day, you may look back at the darkest chapter of your life and say the same words Joseph said. God meant it for good. If this message strengthened you today, subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Share this with someone who needs hope. Because the God who turned betrayal into blessing and suffering into salvation is still working in unseen ways.